loves, it's Jester Vixen here. Oh my gosh, you can't hear me. I can't hear me. Uh, Testing one, two, one, two. Hi guys. Um, so we are still doing Spooky Month. We're doing Caddicarus is Resident Evil 2 Remake. And yeah, why is am I'm trying not to make this like stupid loud. Anyways, how is everyone doing? I hope you guys are having a good day. I meant to have another video out sooner. My apologies. But yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and run into this. And again, I forgot to play music. That was a run-on sentence. I forgot to play music in the beginning. My bad. All right, let's go ahead and have some fun, funage. Right. Also, I don't know if this is rated PG 13, PG 17, PG 18, PG mature. I don't know. It's rated PG Caddy. Maybe Caddy Plus. I don't know. Just throwing that out there. Okay. More to cats and panting. That sounds bad. Watch out!
Can you please help me? I spilled all my orange juice on the floor and I'm trying to suck it up.
I love him for that.
Resident Evil 2, not only called one of the best sequels of all time, but even one of the best games on the PS1 just generally. Personally, I like it as much as the original game, but don't get me wrong, it's for totally different reasons. Resident Evil 2 took the core ideas present in the original game and turned it up to 11. It's much bigger, it's more detailed, it's more unpredictable, it's more totally bloody disgusting, and it features a lot more variety to its locations, music, enemies, weaponry. It's basically everything you could want from a sequel. The reason I like it as much as the original, though, is mainly because the Spencer Mansion in the first game is so beautifully designed, so iconic, and gave you more choices for open-ended progression compared to the sequel that I feel the world of Resident Evil 1 massively elevates it over anything clunky and dated by today's standards. Not to say Resident Evil 2 is linear at all, it isn't, but it's not as tight with its exploration mechanics as 1. It's a bit more go here, find that, go there than 1. Not by a massive amount, but enough to make it noticeable. However, it's fine because 2 goes for a different mood, a different pace, a different vibe. And so, after the original Resi, and Resi 2, and Resi 3, and Resi Survivor, and Resi Code Veronica, and some other games that I don't have but nobody seems to care about them, so piss off! If any game in the series needed, no, deserved a remake, it was the original. So they did that. Resident Evil. If the PS1 Classic didn't convince you, then the GameCube's 2002 remake of Resident Evil 1 absolutely will. This remake was, and still is to this day, one of my favourite games of all time, and easily one of the best survival horrors ever made in my opinion. In all the right ways similar, but in every other way completely overhauled for the better, minus the superior voice acting. You saved me! Yeah. This remake resonated with so many people and left such a huge impact that fans were begging on their hands and knees for a version of Resident Evil 2 exactly like this. Especially with all the ports and remasters of the first remake and Resident Evil 4 being pushed out, everyone wanted Capcom's time and effort being spent on a Resident Evil 2 remake. So then they did it! And it only took 17 years!
Tomato.
Yes, ladies and germs, today we're going to be taking a look at the Resident Evil 2 remake on PC, Xbox One, and PS4. I played the PC version, by the way. If you haven't played this remake yet, or hell, I haven't even played the original game before, then I'm afraid to say that I won't be spoiling anything plot-related, nothing specific about what happens in the story, but I am going to be showing off some footage from the late game and even the end game. I'm just not going to be telling you how you get there, why it happens, but there is going to be a bit of footage from that, just to let you know. And with that, let's go! I hope you're ready.
Beep beep.
I hope you're ready, evil. And our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy shit. This game looks really damn gorgeous. We have come a long way since 1998, and if I'm this impressed only within the first 10 seconds, I can only hope I'll be even more blown away as the game goes on. And I have been waiting way too many years for a game to render a realistic old greasy truck driver eating a burger, but the wait was worth it. The facial animations too are out of this world, and not surprisingly, because this game runs on the RE engine that was initially built for Resident Evil 7, and you can see see it working here to full effect. It makes me think of all the possibilities of redoing Resident Evil 3 with this engine, or hell, even the original Resident Evil again. Leon and Claire especially look fantastic for a just over 20-year gap between the original game and this. I don't know how they do it. At least I know what Claire keeps in that fanny pack of hers. Nivea skincare. The sound design is top stuff too, if not for the soundtrack focusing mostly on atmosphere over dramatic flashiness, but voice acting is as solid as you'd expect from Resident Evil, with the same level of cheese not going too far against genuinely good performances. And every gunshot, zombie groan, floorboard creak, door slam, window shatter, it all sounds like you're there, especially with a good pair of headphones. Although it really doesn't make any sense, all things considered, because in the first few minutes, Leon doesn't only stand this close to an explosion, but immediately follows that with another explosion. Which means the sound through the whole game should be more like this.
Yeah.
What?
That inevitably we arrive at the first ever zombie encounter, possibly the most important part of any classic Resi game. And bitch, I'm ready for you. Come at me, mate. I've aged better than Will Smith. Oh.
Ew.
Well, that's embarrassing. I don't think I've ever died at the first enemy of a Resident Evil game since I was 7 years old. Okay, so the reason that happened is because at the title screen, I chose to start with hardcore mode. Why did I do that? Because it said that was the only way you could use the limited ink ribbon items to save your game. I wanted to keep it as close to the original as possible. But if I can't beat the first enemy...
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm really sorry, everybody, but until I have a little bit more time to sink into the game and get better at it, I think I'm going to start off with standard mode. Anyway, what's the premise of the story here? After the original game saw STAR's Alpha Team get...
I wish I would go faster. I do not judge anyone who goes from hard mode, because it's like really, really bad, down. I won't judge anyone, because I myself do that. Not willingly, but if I spend like 15 minutes to like 2 hours at the same spot, I will finally go ahead and just like go down the difficulty. And if I struggle with the same spot after going down said difficulty, then I will just go ahead and slap myself and turn the game off. Haven't done it yet, but yeah. Yeah.
Lured and trapped inside the Spencer mansion where all the original horrific Umbrella pharmaceutical experiments with the zombie T-virus took place, they found out the truth, uncovered a double agent, and blew up the mansion. But since the virus had already leaked into the mountains around Raccoon City with the infected dogs, it was only a matter of time before the entirety of the surrounding city would be taken over. And that's what you're stuck in the middle of and need to sort out as two protagonists in this game. Claire Redfield, a biker looking for her brother Chris from the first game, and Leon S. Kennedy, a new recruit to the Raccoon City Police Department who's about to discover that being a police officer isn't all it's cracked up to be. There's also a new virus in town called the G-virus being created, tested, and sold to the military in the city somewhere by a scientist known as William Birkin. And instead of just creating zombies like the T-virus does, the G-virus constantly mutates its host until they're unrecognizable and practically unstoppable. That is, depending on how compatible their DNA is. And with all of that and a massive car crash later, the only safe haven for Claire and Leon to go to is the Raccoon City police station to try and solve the mystery. But hey, come on, the station being safe was never really on the cards, was it? Now with Leon as a character, well, he isn't anywhere near the snarky, indifferent legend as he is in Resi 4.
I let our miserable insects out for some exercise down in the sewer.
Thanks. That should keep me company, 'cause boredom kills me.
But that's okay. He's rescuing the president's daughter. He's seen some shit, you know? At least the performance here does the job well and is great for capturing the weedy do-gooder nature of Leon at this early juncture of Resident Evil history. I still prefer Resident Evil 4 Leon, though. The character just isn't as iconic as he could be yet. This isn't Leon Kennedy to me.
Chew on that.
Did he just say chew on that to a giant alligator?
Yeah.
Hope I don't have to write a report on this.
Oh my god, he is Leon! I'm so sorry I doubted you.
I've sent my right hand to dispose of you.
Your right hand comes off?
The good thing is that he is still incredibly nonchalant and oblivious to everything around him, which I appreciate. My favourite snippets of dialogue from him being when he's surprised by an enemy and sounds a lot like a California soccer mum who broke her nail.
Son of a bitch.
I spent all day on them.
Shit.
He spends a bit of his story with a lady called Ada Wong, and you know she means business because she wears her sunglasses in the middle of a blackout.
How can you see anything?
Compared to the original game, she's much more interesting as a character too, and not just a needlessly elusive and mysteriously motivated interruption to the story. She's not exactly fleshed out, then again in Resident Evil who is, but she is the most interesting and relatable she's ever been, and I really liked her. As far as Claire is concerned, well, it's the same old Claire really. Caring, badass, pretty funny, she's really cool. The little girl she meets in her story though, Sherry Birkin, looks a bit too much like that kid in Monster House and it really distracted me. She's also the daughter of the guy who created the G-Virus in this game, which I'm sure you can imagine makes things a little complicated for our heroes, but at least she's great at throwing acid in people's faces. What you have to remember though is that despite it being a remake, the game is pretty damn faithful to its source material, and that's true even for the story, but now it has even more flavor text, character moments, and engaging cutscenes, with better voice acting of course.
However, it is still a Resident Evil story, and not only that, an early Resident Evil story, so all of the little inconsistencies and stupid moments, you kind of just have to brush them aside. The good thing is though, I think the game is fully aware of how silly it is, and it rolls with it.
For instance, I can buy the fact that some shady scientists wanted to cover up their illegal experiments in a secluded mansion and rigged it up with traps in case anyone got suspicious, but why in the mother of God is the city's local police station designed this way? Not so much with the traps, but with locking seemingly insignificant things behind cryptic statue locks, medallion panels, and other random nonsense. I know this does have a reason because of who runs the station and the secrets he's keeping from us, but if that's the case, why have conspicuously placed dial locks on vital key items dotted around the place that anybody could feasibly get? How about that one moment when Sherry is kidnapped and then left in a room with the only method of escape being left in the same room with her? And the fact that her mother, you know, the wife of the G-Virus inventor, gave her young daughter a birthday present that was the only key to unlock access to the G-Virus itself and even the cure for it. That stuff's really hard to swallow, but like I said, I reckon it knows it's a bit silly with a few hints around the game, like this part where you find a fat zombie cop in the station who even in death is still smacking his arms against the vending machine.
Yes, everyone in Raccoon City, apply today. Come and join the Raccoon City Police Department and you'll be just like Brad Vickers, who abandons his teammates in the middle of the woods.
And even in the underground secret lab where Umbrella are always up to their
evil, dastardly, bastardly shenanigans,
still have enough time for brilliantly timed comedic irony.
You have dispersed a dangerous solution without authorization. Your actions have been logged, and you may be subject to disciplinary measures.
Now when it comes to the gameplay on offer, well, I've heard a few people call this game scary. And I agree, because the scariest thing in this game is the plumbing bit.
In all seriousness though, the game did freak me out a fair amount of the time. I wasn't terrified, I rarely am in games or movies nowadays, but Resi 2 Remake gives you the gameplay that Resident Evil 7 reminded us that we loved, but with the design and classic structure that the original Resi 2 provided us, combined with the perspective and controls that Resi 6 has. But just because it uses the control style from Resi 6 doesn't mean anything. It's automatically better than 6 because it's more survival horror. I mean, come on, it wasn't even based in a residence whatsoever at that point. You might as well have called the game Exploding City of Impeccable Doom Evil 6. Now, in the same way the story is presented, this is as faithful to the original in the gameplay, but with loads of bells, whistles, tweaks, and additional mechanics at work to make it arguably the definitive and spookiest way to play the original game. For what is kept the same, well, like before, you're spending most of the game left wandering around the Spencer Mansion-style police station as you go deeper and deeper into its chambers to uncover its mysteries. The station is huge, winding, full of narrow corridors, lots of lights not working, it loops back around on itself vertically and horizontally based on shortcuts you open up, and is filled to the brim with things wanting to politely tell you there's a bit of cereal in your beard. The game gets slightly more linear as you end up in the underground sewers into the final lab section, but it's still not as linear as it could be, and even gives you more items relating to the beginning areas to make backtracking in the late game worth it tenfold. Obviously, I can't really hide behind the fact that the perspective and controls have had a complete overhaul though, and where it actually plays practically the same as Resi 6, which was in my opinion the best controlling Resi game, it reminds me a lot more of Resi 4 with how it goes about its survival horror. Speaking of which, it feels a lot like that Resident Evil 4 concept demo that never came to be. You can move completely freely with the camera pointing wherever you like, walk and run with a toggle button, quick turn at will, aim freely. It feels great and works wonders in the dark hallways. Yes, I personally would have loved it if Resi 2 was remade in the exact same way Resi 1 on the GameCube was, you know, fixed camera, pre-rendered highly artistic backgrounds and the like, and I do very much miss the original music cues.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Not to mention the original voice acting.
About 2 months ago, there was this incident involving zombies.
But it kicks ass in so many other places it's hard for me to care. Plus, I can understand this approach to the remake over fixed camera because this is of course a Leon Kennedy game, who practically single-handedly made over-the-shoulder third-person shooting control schemes his bitch in the early days of that kind of gameplay style, so it only makes sense to bring the Resi 4 vibes back to Leon's beginnings. The item and inventory management is back in full force to make you decide on the fly what items in the station are worth you taking up a valuable item slot at that time, and make you decide how confident you are feeling to leave each limited safe room with specific health items or weapons just in case you're stuck and need them later, or can't grab a key item because you were too careful. Even more so if you go with hardcore mode and have the limited ink ribbons to balance with all the stress in case you ruin your own save data or lose all your progress from dying. With the new and improved Mr. X charging around the station once you activate him, I actually found myself sacrificing items or wasting them to grab other items all the time because I didn't want to take the risk of going back to a safe room in case he killed me, but I'll talk more about that later. There are also puzzles all over the station for optional and key items alike, much like the original, with some being able to be solved on the go, some requiring you to examine items in your inventory to find secrets within, others requiring other items or information to access, and they aren't too tricky, but break up the gameplay enough for them to feel right at home with its classic Resi inspiration. Ammo for all the weapons is also extremely limited and dotted all over the place, so figuring out which enemies need to be taken down or what you can run around is a vital aspect to the tenseness of the gameplay and makes you want to hang on to every single steel bar that you can. There were many moments in the game where I had to run for my life because some of these bastards can really take punishment and soak up your ammo like a sponge, but at the same time, that was rarely an issue for me even when they refused to go down because making shots to specific parts of the body feels so damn good in this game. The crunchy flesh sounds as you make holes in the enemies, the way they react to each part of the bullet's impact, it's all great stuff, and maybe that is why I ended up running out of ammo all the time. That is until I realised you could mix basic gunpowder together to get handgun ammo 3 hours into the bloody game!
Look, don't judge me. I thought you could only mix basic gunpowder with other types of gunpowder. I didn't think you could mix two of the same types together, alright? Although, I suppose I did make the game way more tense for myself for the first few hours, so I'm not complaining.
Like the original, you even get plenty of the tragic backstories of innocent people that were heavily affected by the greed of the Umbrella Corporation that you read through their diary entries and such, with this one from a random kid being pretty damn heavy and hard to read for me, and this one from a taxidermist who... What was he doing to those animals?
Hold on, wait.
Hello, is that Ricky Gervais?
I misread. Maybe. I really came up. I nearly came. Freaking it. I nearly came when wow. Sliced its yellow belly open and warm gut spilled. I feel dirty. This is apparently PG Caddy Plus. I can't pronounce Siberian. Why you gotta do that to the tiger, man? I feel.
One from a taxidermist who... What was he doing to those animals?
I feel dirty.
Hello, is that Ricky Gervais? Have I got an animal cruelty story for you?
Also, you of course get two different campaigns as Leon and Claire, eventually ending up in a final encounter once both are completed. And one element that I personally think shouldn't have been taken directly from the original was the fact that the two campaigns don't massively cross over as much as I'd like for a remake. I think it's great as it is, but I do think for a remake there could have been a little bit more meat to it. There's elements of crossing over with the cutscenes that appear in both stories while some things are happening at similar times, but in terms of gameplay, the game just assumes you're playing for the first time with both characters, whoever you choose to pick, even on the second run. It's possible for both characters to fight the exact same bosses in the same locations, grab the same items in totally different locations and for different reasons, and that kind of stuff took me out the atmosphere a little bit, especially when playing both campaigns back to back. But each campaign is different enough in every other way for it to be totally worth an immediate replay, like the original PS1 game. Not only for the fresh perspective of similar story events, completely different orders and structures of how the police station is completed, and totally unique locations and scenarios exclusive to each character, but also for the new weapons exclusive to them too. With Claire's late game loadout weapons like the submachine gun, grenade launcher, minigun, and electric zappy charge needle thing kicking some serious bloody zombie bottom compared to the original game. Plus, if you're smart enough to take pictures of certain notes and combinations of safes and and lockers in one campaign, like I did, most of the time they will work in the second campaign, aside from a couple of things like this computer system in the labs which has codes that are different in both campaigns, which I can't decide if it's either a very clever trick for people breezing through the game on a second try, or a blatant middle finger to pad things out and force you to go through enemies you could otherwise have totally ran around. But even if you do some occasional identical things over each campaign, if you know what you're doing and have a better map of the layout firmly in your head, you can trim the fat of the second playthrough potentially by hours. So overall, the lack of crossing over in terms of gameplay isn't that big of a deal to me. I just think it would have been cool to see. By the way, am I the only one that found Claire's campaign much harder than Leon's? The start of the game I found really tricky as her, trying to manage the small inventory space around how much of the police station she was able to access in the early game. And coupling that with what felt like a lot less ammo and more enemy encounters left me with absolutely nothing once I ran into my first liquor on her story. And if you want tense, my god, that was tense.
By the way, I'm sure you've noticed by this point that I'm actually using the alternate costume for Claire based on her original PS1 outfit. And you can thank my good friend Luke for that. Because not only did I discover that, but I also found out that you can buy some DLC for the game that allows you to play the entire game with all the original sound effects and music from the PS1 game that would appear when they would appear in the original.
Okay, well, even though I do absolutely love this edition and it made my second playthrough that much more enjoyable and tingly for my nostalgia,
Resident Evil 2.
I think it's a little pissing cheeky that Capcom are charging a microtransaction price for it when, just like the costumes within the game, it could have just been an unlock to incentivize getting a better score by replaying the game. On the other hand though, I don't care, because at the same time, not only is the police station theme back, one of my favourites in Resident Evil history,
Anybody here?
but also the save room theme!
If you aren't feeling nostalgic though, or you just aren't a fan of the original game full stop, don't worry, because the changes this game brings against the original are astronomical. It's as different as the GameCube remake of the first game was, but in its own unique way, and not just with the new perspective and control style, but with practically everything else.
There are plenty of familiar beats for fans of the original game, but also many more surprises for those same veterans, which is very noticeable with brand new enemies to fight, major encounters not appearing where you initially thought they would, hints and teasers building tension towards moments that will never happen, and my god, with this new RE engine powerhousing its way through the game, the lighting alone makes the game tense and even got me into trouble because I wasn't being perceptive enough. And combining that with not expecting something to happen at a certain point and for as fantastical and unbelievable the situations in the game can be, like Resi 7, it still manages to look grimy, gritty, and eerily realistic while running at 60 FPS without any hiccups whatsoever. And all those moments of distant zombies breaking into windows, scattering the light particles against the dust, your torchlight reflecting off of open wounds and pulpy flesh, and every shadow created by objects, enemies, or even yourself playing tricks on you really makes it special. The game even keeps that adorable detail from the original of higher damage inflicted on you being visible in your walk cycle. Oh, bless. Got a cramp, Claire? You should cut down on your pork life, mate. Get some exercise. It really does look utterly gruesome, though. I mean, Resident Evil 2 was always more focused on body horror and the major consequences of bad people taking a dangerous thing they have too far at the expense of huge populations, and this game with its sleek and hot updated look accentuates it to the max. Those Birkin transformations, man. Those Birkin transformations. Talk about disturbing. What was already an impressively detailed feat for PS1 hardware is now given the true level of horror it deserves. And I can say the same for the one-off action set piece as you run away from a giant mutant alligator. This bit looks so damn cool. I completely love it, and it doesn't have any quick time events like Resi 4's moments like this would have, so it's all good in my books. The game does not shy away once from guts pouring out of torsos, grenades erupting upper bodies of monsters, heads splitting open from headshots, and even going as far as to show off every bullet wound you inflict on a zombie, and even individually let you remove limbs as they string off from the body like old kebab meat. I even tested this out to check how detailed it was, and you can indeed not only shoot or slice off arms and legs, but even be as specific as separate feet from the leg that it's attached to. Something that doesn't really benefit you that much as a player in the grand scheme of things, but Christ, what a great detail.
That is a detail.
The final form of Birkin looks like a lady's tuppence. Another change to the game is wooden boards, a very limited resource that takes up another crucial space in your inventory, but one that can majorly help you as you stop the possibility of zombies and monsters crashing through ground floor windows down the corridors you'll be running through repeatedly through the game. However, you can't board up every single window in the game, so picking the best ones entirely out of strategy to save yourself health and ammo by other zombies breaking through becomes another small element of the game that piles on top of everything else you need to think about. Plus, it's great to interact with the window you're trying to board up because the game freezes time for a second, and if a zombie is already standing there trying to break in, it's like... Want another great change? The knife. I'm thrilled to say that it's actually useful in this game. It's not that high in damage, but is very fast and great for killing threats you already knocked down after a well-placed shot or after blowing a leg off or something. So to compensate for its usefulness, it doesn't only have a degradation bar, and you can only find a few in the game overall, but it also takes up another inventory slot, and if you get grabbed while holding one, you can either choose to take the hit in exchange for health and save the knife, or knock off a huge amount of the degradation bar in order to damage the enemy, push them back, and save yourself last minute. And you need to kill the enemy again to get the knife back. Or you can just be like me and panic in the middle of that situation, use the knife automatically and run away because you have no ammo, wasting the knife forever. Not only that, you can even use flash grenades to stun a group, normal grenades to destroy a group and rip their flesh off, or once again use them as get out of jail free cards too by shoving it into a grabby enemy's mouth at the cost of the sub-weapon power and effectiveness being quite a bit weaker. For another great change too, in terms of the lickers, not only are they completely horrifying in this game, but also can even be totally avoided if you remain quiet because obviously they're blind. And I didn't expect them to do anything remotely like that in this game. Remember when I mentioned reaching the first licker encounter with Claire and I had no ammo or items to help me out? This strategy completely saved my life as I made a dash for the next room. It was one of the most memorable and scariest things I've experienced in a game for a long time. The new weapons to pick up and upgrades for them are really infrequent and sometimes cryptic to obtain, and even after getting them, it's not like you're making a move in chess in the original games where you're essentially trading ammo to level the playing field depending on the weapon you use with guaranteed hits because of how you only need to point the gun at the enemy. Now you don't only have limited ammo but also have to be a good aim, all the while dealing with zombies that react to your shots and the environment around you, dogs being able to move and jump at you faster than ever before, and lickers being incredibly difficult to take down. So in a word, screw it! To complement the smoother gameplay too, the map feature not only shows you which keys go with which doors as long as you examine them like in the original, but also shows you different colours of rooms based on if you found everything yet in that room, and shows you specific items of interest and where they are if you walk past them. Which, yeah, on one hand is insanely useful, and I appreciate it to keep the pace of the game up over 2 campaigns, but I also do like the idea of you being left alone trying to remember where things are based on if you can't carry the items at the moment. It's another level of punishment to you for being too careful. Once again, I think it adds to the stress of things to think about while you're panicking in a survival situation. This way isn't bad though, I like both methods. The puzzles too, some of them have been changed up quite a bit. There were many of them where I assumed you'd need another bit of paper or a note to read in order to solve them, at which point I noticed you just needed to be a bit more perceptive around your immediate location. Like with the Leon's desk puzzle, you're told to find out the names of all your comrades on the force and use their initials to open the double locks. And I thought you'll just find a report paper or a register somewhere to get the names, but no, all you gotta do is look at their desks for their name signs. The solution was already there. It's more logical and I appreciate that. Okay, well it's not quite as logical as hiding a special gun behind a door that needs to be unlocked by a USB stick that's hidden in a jeweled box that you need to open with a red jewel from a scepter that will only drop once you attach a red library book to a statue's arm in order to move the statue in the middle of a police station, but...
Why?
What was my point? My favourite puzzle using this kind of logic was incredibly simple yet brilliant to me. You find a broken police car key and a note telling you the vehicle number, and that you can't open the doors of the car with the physical key. I ran around for a while in the garage and couldn't find the exact vehicle number, and so I assumed the item would automatically work now that I had it whenever I got near to the correct vehicle. I just had to keep pressing X around the doors or something. But no, all you need to do is examine the key and press the keyless entry button and follow the flash of the car you just unlocked. I loved that. It was logical yet not totally obvious. In terms of everything else, what was once a game that had a large variety of enemies and situations is very much the same here, but with even more to take back even some of the most avid Resi 2 fans. Every time you go back through old areas you thought was safe, there is always a chance that a new window will break, a new vent cover will blow out, a new enemy will wake up, or a stronger enemy will run at you from a corner when you really weren't ready for them. And the game is also great for Resi 2 fans with how it teases and hints at you about the badass and nasty things to come later. If you've never played the original, then you won't know what will happen anyway, but even if you have an idea, you'll be kept as tense as my arse on a cold day, since reveals of new things are often early, late, or totally swapped around from what you'd expect. Like when Ada 1 gets involved in Leon's story and you get that new hacking side mini game gun thing while trying to survive the odds. That was a surprise, as was that part where you play as Sherry Birkin for a very short time. But easily the worst surprise I could have ever wanted was from Mr. X. Mr. Bloody X. X. I thought I'd be safe far away from him until the second campaign at least, but no, here I am just moseying along minding my own Leon business. And then only a few hours into the very beginning of the game, what? He's there!
Jesus Christ!
Yes, Leon, that's exactly what I said out loud when I first played this game. I'm glad we're on the same page. Also, if you didn't think the game was really that scary to begin with, Mr. X turns Resident Evil 2 into Laxative the video game.
In case you weren't aware, this is an experimental semi-indestructible mutant who's been sent out by Umbrella to clean up any witnesses to the disaster that happened here. All he does is follow you throughout the police station wherever you go and tries to kill you. That's all he does. He's basically Nemesis before Nemesis was Nemesis, and in the original game, like I said, he doesn't appear until the second campaign at all. Here, he doesn't only appear much earlier in the game, but you also can't rely on door loading screens to get rid of him for a second or buy you some time. He'll chase you around wherever he sees you. He follows the sounds of your bullets when you desperately need to protect yourself against zombies, and even listens for your sprinting feet. Even worse, his behaviors are interchangeable. One time I was in the records room and he searched for me as soon as I picked up a key item in there, so I deduced that I triggered him to appear in that room. But after a swift death later on, I replayed that part, grabbed the item, and he never arrived. Only to then pop up and ambush me in the main hall of the police station. Yes, the main hall that's supposed to be one of the safest areas of the game. He looks so intimidating and daunting. He marches and charges towards you with such lethal conviction. His droning, deathly musical score that accompanies him is actually freaky just on its own. He goes up and down stairs and even jumps down ladders. He simply just does not care what you are dealing with or what you're in the middle of. He's always out there, searching for you. And just knowing that and trying to plan your next move based on his vicious stomps echoing through the halls got my blood pumping.
Nope. Freaking.
This also made me extremely nervous when I had to complete a puzzle in the game that was taking a fair amount of time, because at any point I could be interrupted and I just had to keep looking around my shoulder. But he can also get stuck. Hello? Hello? Are you okay? Oh god! And with Mr. X chasing you, thank the Lord for this police station. I mentioned earlier it's similar to the Spencer Mansion from the first game, and another reason for that is that everything connects back on itself, especially once unlocking the correct doors, making most encounters with Mr. X totally escapable if you remember where to sprint to and where no enemies will be waiting to surprise you. You can even move chairs or bookcases for certain shortcuts, which is a benefit to your exploration, yet a hindrance to you for escaping Mr. X. So choosing whether or not to keep a door totally safe and secure against the idea of backtracking through more rooms to reach a past area becomes yet another decision for you to balance out in your head. This is also especially where the third-person view helps out tremendously. Anticipating your next move to avoid an attack by being able to run and look back behind you is really a lifesaver, and it really works with the many bosses in the game for how much faster and aggressive they are than the original, along with how much health they can sap away from you with their attacks. Speaking of, in those bosses, I've seen a few people complain that you can't run that fast away from them when they charge after you or combo you, but personally, I disagree. You just have to be a bit more conservative and picky with choosing moments to shoot the boss and run away or around them. If you just don't get greedy and don't stay too close to them, you'll be absolutely fine. I will say this though, on the stage 2 Tyrant boss in Leon's campaign, it was 2 AM when I did this part of the game, and so while being busy bruising my legs in frustration, it didn't occur to me once to block his charge with the many pieces of debris littering the area. So yeah, if you're on this part and a little bit stuck, do that, because that move he does is practically unavoidable and he one-hit kills you every time he does it. Also, you have collectibles to find and shoot like in every game from Resi 4 onwards. That's fun. After finishing both campaigns, you even unlock that 4th survivor mode from the original game that lets you play as everyone's favorite bland and forgettable secret agent Hunk, as he needs to escape the entire police station from the sewers all the way to the front door using only the weapons, ammo and items you have at the start of the mode. And yes, this mode is incredibly difficult, meaning I couldn't finish it for this video, but I do hear they also kept in that extra secret tofu mode that lets you try the exact same mission but as a giant piece of tofu with a knife. You can't make this shit up. So I guess for that reason alone, that makes this one of the best games of 2019.
In this video, I have dabbled in and out of what I wasn't too fond of with this game, and another one of those things, actually, now that I come to think of it, is the lack of spiders. Where are the spiders in this game? I mean, I'm not complaining too much. I know there's plenty of new enemies to replace them and keep up more with the themes of the story, but still, I think a few spiders in there would have been quite cool. With all that said, though, phew, there you go, everybody. That was the Resident Evil 2 Remake, a game that I didn't think really needed to exist, much like the original GameCube remake of Resident Evil 1, but now that I've played it and experienced this brand new, startling interpretation, I'm glad that they did. And that really goes to show how good the original Resident Evil remake and the Resident Evil 2 remake are, because both of their original games they're based on, in my opinion, didn't massively need from the ground rebuilt remakes, but
They just did it because they could, and they turned out great regardless.
If you couldn't tell by now, I highly recommend this game. If you like Resident Evil, or hell, like horror games in general, please consider picking this one up. It's even got 3 free DLC side stories in the works starting to release from mid-February onwards. Capcom are on a roll with Resident Evil 7 and now this knocking the ball out of the park and proving that classic single-player focused, slow-paced and tense survival horror has a strong audience and would love to see more games like this.
Hell, maybe even a Resident Evil 3 Nemesis remake? Or maybe Resident Evil 8, but with all the fixed camera angles and pre-rendered backgrounds? The possibilities are endless. So before I start thinking too much about Mr. X and how he's going to chase me into my nightmares, I'm going to end this video with joy, positivity, optimism. This was great. Resident Evil 2. What more can I say? It's an incident involving zombies. Hey there everybody, do you want to see some outtakes from today's video? Then stay tuned until the very, very, very end of this video. But first of all, thank you so much for watching until the end.
So that was a lot of fun. I still don't play any Resident Evil games, any horror games. I'm not horror. I am not. But I enjoy watching other people play. So, yeah.
Ripley stuck in the middle of space station
sorry.
events and nervously must direct and strategize every movement of her team on board the ship to complete missions, all the while being hunted by the deadly xenomorph, and need to use limited cameras, distractions with sounds, motion trackers, and your own quick wits to keep as many of the team alive as you can. Be careful though, because if you don't listen, you yourself will be ripped apart in the comfort of your own little duck. I know this game looks a lot like Five Nights at Freddy's, but this is far from it. In my opinion, it's way more stressful and satisfying to overcome since there's so many more variables to what can happen and relies entirely on how quick you are with positioning, predicting the movements of the alien, power management with a limited amount of defenses to use at a time, and even commanding your team by telling them to sneak, hide, run, or even change directions all under a time limit.
Stress.
It's difficult and absolutely intense, but a great time sink and euphoric to get good at. The game is only $5 on the Apple and Android stores and has absolutely no microtransactions in it whatsoever. It's just giving you a really solid mobile horror gaming experience, and it's perfect for when you're just about to go to sleep, and before you shut your eyes, you want to have a few more reasons to keep your eyes open. So thank you so much for sponsoring today's video, and thank you to every single person on the screen right now that supported me via Patreon, along with the top tier supporters for this month. Omar Matu, Basil, Carl Hakkinen, Gamerman, I Have a Portal Gun, Exopaz, Matthew Hubble, Mills Kahai, Brandon Brand.
Okay. Bum, bum, bum. Ba-da-ba-bum, bum.
Resident... Oh.
Great stuff.
Today I'm going to be having a look at the Resident Evil 2 remake on the PC, PS4 and Xbox One. I was playing...
Are you a handsome young man, Stan? Why is his ear talking?
Because that's what dogs do when they... Oh, he's got his ball out. Oh, for God's sake. Stan! We're trying to film. No, I'm not itching your butt.
Scratch my butt.
No. So I'm sorry, Resident Evil. However, it's okay because 2 goes for a better script rememberer.
It's very sad.
I know you're very sad, but you kind of ruined the continuity now. It's as different as the GameCube remake of the first game was to the original, but in its own unique way. Of course he goes. Now I've got to do the shot again because he's ruined the continuity again. You bloody animal! So then they did that! Whoops. Now when it comes to the gameplay on offer, well...
Ready?
Good Stan.
It's 1 PM and he's eating his breakfast. Now, he's had all morning to eat his breakfast and he eats it when I need everything quiet.
Oh. That's funny because my dogs, they decide to eat whenever, and it's normally in the afternoon. But yeah, so thank you guys for joining me, for watching Caddy's Resident Evil 2 remake. That was really interesting. Really, really, really gruesome. But I enjoyed watching that though. And hopefully I will be having another video out very soon. Until next time, I'll catch you guys later. Bye bye.